Hello, welcome back to Cambridge Auto Sound. I'm Nathan, and it's the 3rd of January, so we're on that little funny bit between when the rest of the world's woken up and when some people go back to work. We're a little bit quiet the first couple of days of the year, so I'm just mucking around with my own car, trying out these Audison underseat drivers, which they're not new, they've been around for years and they're very well regarded. It's the 8-inch underseat speaker with the BMW connector. But I've been trying to make a video on BMWs and on my BMW in particular for a while now, and just never quite kind of published it, just because I keep changing things and it seems too long. And I just start chatting a load of nonsense really. So I'm going to try and keep this really concise and to the point. But basically there's so many upgrades for BMWs, that's why the kind of video that I was making seems to go on for so long, just because there's so many choices. The pair of these 8-inch underseat drivers, they come in at £478 for the pair. The speakers that I've got in my car at the moment are the Morel underseat drivers, and they come in at £738 for the pair, so £260 difference. And I want to put these in my car and run them for a couple of weeks and just see if there's actually any difference, because I don't think the Morel, as nice as the Morel underseats are, I don't think you're really going to notice the difference spending that much money on a speaker that goes under the seat and hasn't kind of got the same kind of clarity requirements as a like a mid-range or a tweeter. So yeah, I think these will probably work really well. I mean, I know they work well. I've used them in several cars before, but what I mean is I don't think you need to spend as much money on the Morels. But let's have a go. That's the interesting thing about working in car audio. I'm sure everyone that runs their own car audio shop will kind of think the same, that they're chopping and changing their systems around so much just so they can experience a few different things. Let me get these in. I'm going to take some measurements of the speakers before as well, so I can try and see if it's scientifically any different in terms of the level and the range of frequencies that these give you, but I'm pretty much suspecting they'll be fairly similar. Right, hopefully you can hear me over the kind of roar in the background. So what's basically happening is I'm playing a pink noise tone, and I've got all of the speakers muted other than the underseat speakers. That pink noise is a tone that we use to set up systems. It's a kind of equal level across the whole frequency range. And I've taken off all the filters that I've got activated, so they're playing as low as they can possibly play and as high as they can possibly play. And I've got no kind of, like I say, no EQ going on there at all. And if I press record, this is on a program called REW. That shows us then the sound profile that's coming out of those speakers. I've got a microphone that's sitting roughly in my driver's head location, and it's just in a fixed position. And then if I just let this run, there's a little average counter down in the corner. We're waiting for that to get to around 100, and then stop that. And if I save that current profile, that will give me something then to compare the. I'm going to mute it. Oh, that's better. Right, I've muted those two speakers now. But that graph, I'm still shouting, that graph will give me something to compare on paper the Audison speakers to the Morel speakers. We'll have a look at the profile of the Audisons, see if we can fill out if that fills in some of these gaps, see if they're any better on paper. And then, like I say, I'll run them for a couple of weeks and just see what I think of them in the flesh. But yeah, I'll show you around that software more in the future because it's quite interesting.
Psychedelic view, country house, no food, neck shimmering in June, kick it back on the roof, saw her naked in the lake, now she's coming up to my room, just bought a new sports car and filled it up with some fumes.
While I'm out the car and before I fit the other speaker, it's interesting just to look at the differences between the Audison and the Morel. Very similar looking, but the Morel's actually a bit deeper, which I did find problematic when installing it. In fact, this is even with the very back part taken off. It's normally got another little cover over that spider. This bit of the speaker is called the spider, if you didn't know. But yeah, it's normally got an extra little bit of plastic on there, which we had to take off to even get it to fit. The Audison pops straight in, very easy, no real need to use a gasket very often. But yeah, we'll see what they both sound like. Right, that speaker is in, and it took like 10-15 minutes or so once you found all the tools, nice and easy. While I've got that seat up still, I thought I'd just sit here for a couple of minutes and explain the kind of different levels of system in a BMW. So these are your main speaker layouts. There's a speaker that's usually under the seat, a speaker that's in the door, and then on the higher level systems, you've got a tweeter up here. So the three systems, you've got bass, hi-fi, and premium. So the bass system, unfortunately, it doesn't mean bass as in lots of bass, it means bass as in bottom of the pile, bass spec. It's got a 6-inch speaker under the seat, and it has a 4-inch speaker in the door. It doesn't generally have a tweeter. The next level up, in some cars it's called hi-fi or just mid-level, generally in 3 series, 4 series, 5 series, not so much in the 1 and 2 series. But hi-fi, you have got an 8-inch speaker under the seat, so an upgrade in that respect. You've got a 4-inch in the door, and then you've got a non-branded tweeter grille. So this says Harman Kardon, that's how you tell if it's got Harman Kardon. The other one just hasn't got a badge on it. Pretty good system, nice and easy to upgrade. There's loads of options for speakers out there, and we can talk about the amplification in a minute. The top of the pile is then the premium system, which in this car is Harman Kardon. Some cars you can get Bang & Olufsen. That is also an 8-inch under the seat, slightly stronger magnet on it and more powerful driver. 4-inch in the door, higher quality 4-inch, and a higher quality tweeter, like I said, with this branded Harman Kardon grille. That's generally how you'll tell your 3 different systems. No tweeter, non-branded tweeter, or Harman Kardon tweeter. The amplification side of that is with the bass system, it just runs from the head unit to the underseat 6-inch, and then from that underseat 6-inch up to the door. They're the best ones to upgrade because it's the biggest difference, if you like. The mid-level system, that does have an amplifier in the boot, and it's run via an analog signal. By that I mean it's just typical speaker wires from the head unit to the amplifier. Then from that amplifier it runs 1 channel to each of the underseats, 1 channel to the doors, and then it splits for the mid-range and tweeter. And then there's usually rear speakers or multiple rear speakers. The Harman Kardon, or the Bang & Olufsen system, gets a bit more complicated because it's a fibre optic digital connection from the head unit. So you don't have a bunch of speaker wires going from the head unit to the amplifier to get amplified. You just get 2 little fibre optic cables going from the head unit, and that carries all the information that the amplifier needs. That amplifier then splits it between all the different speakers in the car. The upside of that is it's a nice, clean, flat, digital, good quality signal. The downside is it's a little bit more expensive to upgrade because you need to get another little module, a little box of tricks to change it from the kind of protocol that cars understand in terms of the way that they work with their fibre optic, to then the protocol that a DSP or amplifier will understand. They're typically between £450 and £800 depending on the age of the car you've got, because they've all got different kind of fibre optic protocols that need to get decoded. In this era of BMW, you can pick up a decoder from Vibe. Actually, they've just come out with one for about £450. In some of the newer Audis, Porsches, Mercedes, you need a more complex decoder basically, and they can be up to from £650 to £800 depending on the one you go for. All of the systems are worthy of upgrade, whether you've got the bass system or even if you've got Harman Kardon. Harman Kardon's good, but it's not the last word in car audio. There's so many different upgrades available for all of the different levels, which is why it's been quite hard to make this video, because there's probably 50 different ways of doing it, and I can't sit here and explain all 50 to you. So I'm just going to show you what I've done to my car. If that interests you, great, we can kind of go from that point and go cheaper or go more expensive in terms of the products that we use. So as you've seen, I had the Morel speakers under the seat. Brilliant speaker, but I just want to see what the Audison's like at that cheaper price point. In the door, I've got the Morel Reference range. So Morel do 2 different levels of plug and play system, the Reference being their higher end system. So these are the BMW Reference. They're £1,000 for this set. So for that you get 2 of the mid-ranges and 2 of the tweeters and all the hardware and plugs and wires that you need to be able to plug those in. That's why it's called plug and play, because they've done that research and that R&D into kind of making the baffle and the adapter, so you can just literally take one BMW speaker out, put a Morel speaker in and plug it into the little BMW plug, nice and easy. There's so many other different speakers you can use. Some of them will be plug and play, some of them will be ones that you have to make your own baffle and your own little adapter and wire it up differently. We're also running an active configuration, which means that there's 2 speaker wires coming into this door. One speaker wire goes to the mid-range and one speaker wire goes to the tweeter. That just gives us much more control from the DSP, that we can time align each speaker, because as you can see there's a distance between them and you don't want them both time aligned to the same kind of point, because, well, they're 2 different distances apart. And also you can then you've got more bands of EQ per speaker. That might be getting a bit technical, but when you kind of get into a system that I like to listen to, that's what you need to do to be able to tune it. We'll go more into tuning hopefully in the next video. I'll show you that DSP software a bit more. Right, for now though, I'm going to put this back down and I'll then just wrap up the video and show you what I've got in the boot.
Revolving doors blowing the heat, waking me up right in front of me. Staff at the hotel wanna meet me like I'm one of those celebrities that go on the TV just to see if they start having sex, then suddenly they'll wake up with a personality. Come on, which one's gonna kill themselves next? Woke up from an iPhone test, then go back to sleep in Egyptian cotton sheets. I feel so blessed. Every day come back to my room and my clothes have been well pressed. I walk around this paradise on this hilltop so depressed. Went up to the highest floor, run down like an old matador. No breath left in between the boards, clinging on the rock. Came up here to see the sun, layers, but I just brought my gun and head straight down to the garage and dreaming psychedelic view. Country house, no food, neck shimmering in June. Kick it back on the roof, saw her naked in the lake. Now she's coming up to my room. Just bought a new sports car and filled it up with some fumes. Dreaming psychedelic ways, I fall apart every day. I sit outside with the paper, cocaine on my face. I dreaming psychedelic views.
Right, before I go on to tell you and show you what amplifiers I've got in this car, I'm just going to run that same test now the Audison speakers are in. So I've got the pink noise playing, it's the same volume level as before, and I'm just going to do the same general sweep of it. I can already see the traces looking very similar to it did with the Morel speakers. That's its 100 averages thereabouts. So I'm going to save that and then I'll have a look at that on the laptop in a bit more detail, but it looked broadly similar to the Morels did. These speakers have got to run in, they're brand new out the box. I haven't actually run these at all, so we'll see what they sound like after a couple of weeks. So we've talked about what a BMW has as standard. Now let's talk about what you can do to upgrade it. You've probably already seen in the background to the clips I was taking earlier, this has got 2 fairly decent sized little subwoofers, but there's no amplifiers on display, there's no subwoofer box on the floor. What I wanted from this build was that it was quite high end in terms of its amplification, but all hidden. So that obviously took away the possibility of using large format Audison Voce or Helix C4 AB class amplifiers that are just way too big to hide under the floor. You'd need to build a false floor or have them on display, which I didn't want for this particular car. So then we're looking at Class D amplifiers. I hadn't used the Audison SR range before, so that's what I've got hidden under the floor. We'll talk about that in a minute. I haven't also got a subwoofer box that sits on the floor because we've built these fiberglass enclosures to go in the sides, and to maximize the floor space. That works really well, gets them out of the way. It's not then a huge investment in terms of a loss of space, but it's an awful lot of bass that you can get out of this particular kind of way of doing things. They're both about 15 litres of airspace each side, and they're the 10-inch Miele Pro Hertz subwoofer. So it's a shallow sub. They're about 3 inches of mounting depth, and they require at least 14 litres of airspace. So we've got them in about 15, so slightly oversized, but they play really nicely. yeah, that's the subwoofer side of things. I mean, adding a subwoofer to any system massively improves the kind of the depth of the system and what it can do. Having two of them just means that you kind of really feel that sub bass, gets the hairs on the back of the neck tingling, which is really nice. In terms of amplification, so we've said, again, the mid-level and the Harman Kardon system, they've normally got an amplifier that sits under the left-hand side of the boot. So whether it's a 3 Series or an estate car or a coupe, pretty much almost always the amplifier is down under a panel under there. What we've done in this car is we've used the space under the floor, which is actually a pretty small amount of space. And we've gone for a multi-amplifier setup with a separate DSP. So probably the cheapest way and the first kind of entry-level way of upgrading a car would be a single amplifier that's got a DSP built into it. And that's usually roughly the size of this single amp here. They can be 6-channel, 8-channel, 12-channel, depending on which one you go for. And with the DSP inside it, it's great because there's not as much wiring you have to do. You don't have to send signal from the DSP into the amplifier. It's just all done within that one chassis. The downside of that is what we call kind of headroom. When you're EQing a system, you're often pulling the levels down. And with separate amplifiers, you've then got a manual gain adjustment. You can just turn those up a little bit just to kind of reintroduce a bit of that level. With an all-in-one DSP amplifier, you're obviously stuck to the kind of the 5 dB, 6 dB sometimes that you can boost each level or each channel. And sometimes you just run out of a little bit of headroom. For most people, that's going to be fine because it still plays perfectly loud. For those people that kind of really like to crank the system up and kind of just play it at those levels that might be a little bit above more kind of the comfortable level for some people, this way of doing things, it gives you more power. It also kind of gives you kind of just better control per channel. And these amplifiers, these Audison SR, they actually sound really nice as well for digital amps. But so we've spoken a minute ago, obviously you can't fit 4 Audison Voce amps under here. It's just, there's not the space for it. But what we have got is these Audison SR amplifiers. So these are their Class D amplifiers. They've got some kind of clever technology in there that means that they're not as harsh sounding as some of the early Class D amplifiers that people might have experienced. Hidden down underneath that small amplifier, there's the DSP. That's a Helix 10-channel DSP. Because like we said in the RS6 video, what you really want for an active system is at least 9 channels. So 2 tweeters, 2 mids, 2 bass drivers or woofers at the front, that's 6 channels. 2 rear channels, that's 8 channels, and then a sub channel. So I know we've got 2 subs, but they're running off the same channel, so that's 9 channels. So we've got a 10-channel DSP. That's running 3 different amplifiers. And we've put them on these kind of 3D printed racks just to get them so they've got a nice amount of airspace around them. But so they all fit under that boot floor. Very small space. I know it looks maybe a little bit scruffy. This isn't a show build, but hopefully it's not going to be embarrassing when I show people that this is kind of what we can do. We can fit it into a small space like this. If you did want a really showy system, we could kind of space them out a little bit different so they're a bit more symmetrical, build a vanity panel that goes over there so that either they're on display the whole time when the boot floor's closed, or you can lift it up and then there's a bit more of a kind of beauty panel, if you like, just to hide all the wires and just mean that the 2 amplifier faces are on display. Right, I'm going to end that here just because I tend to waffle on too much anyway. That's a fairly brief look around my own car and what we can do to most BMWs. Like I said, there's so many different options that the best thing is if you've got a BMW and you want an upgrade, drop us a line, give us a call. We can talk through what your car's already got in it, what your requirements are in terms of if you want a really blazingly loud system versus if you want like a nice subtle volume upgrade but a massive sound quality upgrade. And we can tailor the system depending on what you want. If you want to have a listen to this car, the way this sounds, so you can kind of then choose, do you want the Morel speakers, do you want multi-amplifier setup kind of thing, again, drop us a line, we can arrange a demo. You can sit in it for a while, listen to your favorite tracks, and then go from there in terms of how we're going to like spec your system and the way we're going to install it. I'm going to tune those Audison underseats now, and then I'll run them for a couple of weeks. I'll get back to you on what those are going to sound like. I'm also going to change the front end speakers, the Morel component, that £1,000 set. I'm going to try some other speakers in a couple of weeks, so I'll update you on those. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.